This is the Conrad Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
For 5 years, 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is June the 11th, 2023, and this is episode 324 of Workshop Radio. In just a minute, guys, we got Chris coming on to talk about dirt cheap comms. I'm really excited about that. But real quick, let's get the announcements out of the way. Howdy, Byron and Haas. Good to have you in here. First off, it's Sunday night, so we always got to remember Amy Dingman of A Farmish Kind of Life. She was gracious enough to be one of our sponsors, and she's a person that I stand behind, a friend, someone that I've met in real life. And if you ever need, she has a way of telling you the hardest truth with the sweetest sounding voice and allow you to swallow it without getting a kick to the butt. She's just perfect at that. But honestly, she is one of the most transparent people you will find for both motivating you and telling you the truth and being open and honest about what she does. So check her out at afarmishkindoflife.com. And if you really like it and you want to go old school, sign up for her Farmish papers. It's always, it's cool to get a old school paper newsletter every single month in the mail. Hey, Backwoods and Bonnie Blue, good to have you. Number 2, patch of the month. I was going to unveil today's patch, but I'm not sure, or this month's patch, so that'll be on Thursday night because I'm not sure if everybody's got their patch yet, and I always hate to ruin the surprise. So Angus is really excited to help model the patch, so we will do an unveiling for you next week. But I just got to say, guys, Friday, we picked up 3 new subscribers. So I really appreciate you because everyone who's doing this is helping me turn this into a full-time job. And I told you, and if you guys want to remember Mitch from Telegram or from TikTok earlier this year who said, you'll never make money making the videos like you. Well, I'm well on my way to being full-time for December 31st this year. And you guys are a big part of that. So thank you. So patchofthemonth.co, $10 a month, $100 a year. And that you'll get one cool, here, I got one sitting right here to show you. There it is. Can I drink this fuel? You get some politically incorrect patches just like that all the time. Byron Roberts can't wait for his next month. Absolutely, I can't wait for you to get it. Finally, because I keep getting asked about this all of a sudden again, today's tool is the Govee Freezer alarm. It hooks up through Wi-Fi. I've been using it for almost 3 years at my place now, and the thing just works. I have one in all 3 of my deep freezes, and it's a great way to monitor your temperatures so that you don't have happen to you what I've heard from a couple of people lately. Their freezers died and they lost all their meat. So then you get a hazardous cleanup and a huge loss of inventory. So anyway, if you're looking, links are in the description all over the place. And with that, give me 1 second here and we will bring on our guest. Good day, sir. How are you?
Hey, Tim.
I am excited to have you on here. This episode come quick. It was only like, 10 days ago or something? You're like, hey, let me show you all this stuff that I did about dirt cheap comms. And I'm like, we need to turn this into an episode. And here we are. So
yeah, well, I was chatting with you on the book review of 1 Second After. And I mentioned the RTL SDR, the little device I'll talk about, and I got in your Telegram and I said, hey Tim, this is that thing I was talking about, and oh, by the way, did a whole presentation on dirt cheap communications and meeting your needs for just pennies, and you said, yeah, let's do this. I said, absolutely, I'd love to.
There's a part we're going to talk about later that kind of reminds me of some of the old. Are you old enough to remember the Anarchist Cookbook?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we won't, what do they call it? Bury the lead. We're not going to spoil it, but there is a part in there that's kind of like that. So I'm pretty stoked. So
yeah.
So I never asked you, do I call you Chris or Christopher?
I prefer Christopher, but I'm not going to be offended by Chris. Just don't call me.
That's perfect. I always try to remember to ask, and I'm like, darn it, I forgot to ask you before we started.
That's all right. No,
and how do you pronounce your last name?
I actually have no idea. So
that's perfect.
It's true. I really have no idea how to pronounce my own last name. When we were growing up, we always said De Vidal, and then I've talked to several people who came from France, and they said, no, De Vidal or Du Vidal. Just don't call me late for dinner. So
that works for me. Cool. So fill me in, because we've known each other like in passing for quite some time, and we've chatted a few times, and I saw your cool thing that you're working on that you can share as we go along too. But so where did you start out? Where did you grow up? First job in high school? I always love hearing that from people.
Oh, okay. First job in high school.
Yeah, fill us in on your background, man.
I was dunking the donuts. I was got up and worked the midnight shift at during high school years. So I worked really late shift and dunking the donuts, and then got into then I was the AOL call center had opened up 2 miles away, and somebody came in. I started talking to him. He said, you could go interview for a job. I said, yeah. So I went the 2 miles. I was on a bicycle back then. That's how a teenager I was. So I walked in there. I never hardly ever used Windows. So I was familiar with DOS and not Windows, and passed the interview questions on DOS alone. So that's how I got started in an IT career. And so I was answering phone calls at AOL way back in the day, more than 20 years ago.
You still working in IT now?
And today, yes, I work for a company that I'm not too terribly proud of, so I'm not going to mention the name.
No, hey, that's all right.
But they pay the bills, and work in the Unix department for I'll just tell you, it's a Fortune 50 financial company.
Right on.
Yeah, so we have a huge IT department, and it pays bills, because that when you're in that large of a silo, you're really specialized. So all we're doing all day is swapping hard drives and shutting down servers. That's pretty much all we do.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're in Florida now. Did you grow up in Florida?
We're born and raised. I always lived in Jacksonville, and just love it. And then 2 years ago, during COVID and all the nonsense with January 6th, and my wife and I both said, you know what, let's move to the country. Her mom has 2.5 acres out that was an hour and a half from Jacksonville. And so we bought RVs. This is one of the 2 RVs, and this is my office RV. And then we have another RV, and bought some solar panels that I have yet to wire in. I need to wire. And we're going to go, and we've got basically a little mini homestead now. My wife is out there almost every day putting in some plant, and now she's starting to sell plants. And we're talking about soon maybe some ducks and some chickens. I hope some chickens, and some a little pond. It's just great, man. It's just great. And Florida weather is beautiful, and
I'm jealous.
Florida soil is awful, but Florida weather is great. So people are like, oh, you must have a great growing season. Yeah, the weather is beautiful for growing stuff, but the soil is very sandy. It's really gritty. It's not great. So you have to kind of work with it and work around it. But we just got this little homestead, and we're just tooting away. And I'm trying on the side to work on a product called Secure Coop, and I'm pretty close. I'm in beta testing right now. And
I think it's cool because I've seen you. How many? Has it been 2 years? 3 years?
I thought I was a pretty good programmer.
Yep.
But I just hit so many technical hurdles, and a lot of that was inexperience. But some of it was just dumb luck. I accidentally uncovered a bug in a database software. Who does that? Right. So why did I have to hit that? So so a lot of it is just inexperience. But it was Jack of Survival Podcast that inspired me to pick up automation. I said, I'm going to do that, but boy, I didn't know this has been harder than having children. But I'm not kidding.
No, I believe you.
But it's been just even though it's a struggle, I feel like it's hand in glove. I feel like it's a niche for me.
Sure.
So I really just enjoy it, even though it's really been difficult. I'm sort of I call myself a survival MacGyver.
Okay, I like that. What does that mean?
Yeah, what I mean by that is I have a personal principle about spending money on preparedness or survival items in such that if it's something I know I'm going to use in my daily life, Jack's saying if times get tough, or even if they don't.
Sure.
If I know I'm going to use it, like, I don't know, an extra pair of shoes or a water bottle, if I know I'm going to use it, I'm willing to spend the money on it. But if I think may not ever use this thing, I'm going to not only spend as little money as I possibly can, I'm going to ponder ways to come up with a solution that meets the need that costs nothing or just is dug up from around me. Kind of like, you remember MacGyver from the TV show?
Oh yeah, I grew up watching him. Yeah,
I love that show. So
the old one, of course. Yes.
Yeah, the old one. I don't know about the new one, but so like just this week, I was like, how do you make rifles? A rifle, So I was learning this week how to make a deer rifle out of a hydraulic tube.
You sound like me, man. I like that.
Yeah.
Always learning something new.
Always learning something new, and I got this long commute into Jacksonville once a week, and so I'm all like driving along thinking about, okay, how would I put that together, and without spending any money. And that's how that connects to the shop topic of the show is, I want to do ham radio and I want to do blah blah blah, but I can't quite justify big bucks on a ham radio.
Sure.
I can't justify to my wife to hey hon, I just spent $1,000 on a Yaesu. Oh, no. So how can I get the maximum bang for my buck? And that's kind of I come at it from a survival MacGyver perspective.
That's what I liked about it. So, okay, you sent me your full title. You said this title works really good. Yeah. I actually had to shorten it because it was too long for the podcast title.
Too long.
Can you tell people what your full title was? Because I love it. Yeah.
So, dirt cheap emergency communications meet 80% of your needs for $30, including one method that's highly illegal. So,
I love it, and it is. I mean, it's cool. It definitely reminds me of the old anarchist cookbook. That kind of thing.
It definitely does. I was just pondering one day. It was as I was driving, and I'm looking at, and we'll get to that later. But I saw something. I thought, how can I use that if the grid is down? And started thinking about it. So
I like this. I like taking these topics from different angles, right? So a couple of years ago, I had a guy on talking about wood gasifiers. And the dude knew everything about it. It was great. The thing and no slam on him at all, but he sold prefab kits. Everything was cut for you. It was thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
It was awesome for the person who wants that.
I remember you saying.
I'm still looking for somebody who's built one using MacGyver methods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, I've had lots of dudes on for ham radio, and I have Nate coming on. I think he's coming on next week. And he has some serious gear, and I love Nate's gear. But I also like taking I like looking at it from the other end too, because like you said, I'm going to paraphrase, but not everybody, like ham radio isn't going to be an everyday use for most people.
No.
But it's really cool to have, it's something that everybody needs some form of comms, at least I think we do. Yeah. So where did you start? How did this kind of come about?
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to preface this by saying I am definitely not an expert. You know that phrase, jack of all trades and master of none.
Yes,
I've got
absolutely.
my fingers in all sorts of little pies, but I've got not mastered any one particular topic. So, if questions come at me, I'm probably going to have to deflect to an expert. But I don't even have a ham license yet. But I've learned enough about those basic topics to be dangerous with it. So,
sure.
Yeah.
You've learned enough that you're able to do a presentation on this.
Yeah.
Where did you do that? You did one for a local group or whatever? Yes,
I did. We have a prepper group that's around the corner, and they and she's I bumped into her one day, and she said, "Oh, you're a prepper?" Yeah. I said, "Yeah." I said, "And I've been studying communications." And she said, "You should come and do a presentation." Like the first day, the first meeting, she's like, "Come and do a presentation." Okay, I started writing up some notes and some things and put it into a PowerPoint, and there we go.
So, I mean, I think this should go without saying, but a person doesn't have to spend a metric shit ton on comms gear to have a decent system. And hey,
right, and you don't need to learn a lot either. That's the big thing. Is I'm not going to talk over your head because I'm not an expert. I'm not going to be able to go into depth and go over your head. I'm just going to give you just the basics to get you up, get you going, get you listening to a few channels, and in an emergency, you can hear the world around you. So,
and I mean, if I had to choose between being able to send or receive, I think I'd probably pick receive, because at least then you are able to be informed, you know, and maybe make some decisions based on what you're hearing. May not be perfect, but I mean, now I'm saying if I'm on a rooftop and the house is getting surrounded by water, sure, I'd love to be able to send. But I'm a numbers guy. I like to go by the odds, you know, the things you're going to use the most. So
I agree.
Where does one start? What's your first thing?
And on that topic, exactly, I agree that you're going to do a whole lot in a true emergency. You're going to do a whole lot more listening than talking. But we're going to talk about some ways to transmit. There are some possibilities for the low budget transmitter. You know, but I'm way out here in the sticks. Nobody has. I couldn't offer anything. There's nothing I could tell people 20 miles away that would help them, because there's nothing going on around. You know,
makes sense. Sure.
Yeah, but I do have that capability to transmit 20 miles if I need to. So, all right. So you want me to jump in?
Sure. Yeah. Start at her, and I'll ask questions as we go along. And yeah, this will be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Let me see if I can from my computer. I'm going to do this. Hold on just a moment.
Yeah, no worries.
Upload the file from my computer and do it that way. It'd be better than trying to share my screen. Okay, it is uploading, processing. Sorry, I should have done this before.
Oh, it's okay.
It's still processing.
We can get it. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah.
I can share it on my end too if it doesn't come up, but.
All right, it's still processing and spinning.
You go ahead. You if you want to start, I can. Okay. I'll try to bring it up here. I'll follow along with you, and we'll just talk as we. Oh, there we go. Cool. All right, let's see what happens here.
All right, there we go. Cool. So we're going to talk about now. I said $30. It's U.S. dollars. I'm sorry for the Canadian audience.
That's okay. I understand. Brian from Lots Project and I had a chat the other day, and he asked me about the makeup of the workshop, and I said it's around. I think I checked last night. It's like 73% Americans and 7% Canadians. So,
okay.
So don't worry a bit.
All right. So most of the audience is going to know. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Are you able to? Yep,
so your basic needs.
Money's to know. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if your money's tight, 80% of your basic needs, you just want to listen for a few miles, for several miles. You want to transmit, and there's a possibility of waking up people in your group or neighborhood, people around you.
That's the fun one, right?
Yeah, that's. All right, so a lot of preppers talk about the Baofeng, and I'm not going to hate on the Baofeng. It is I've got one. It's an excellent little cheap little radio, $22, and it's plenty reliable. You got ham bands. If you get to a local ham repeater, like I've got one 3 miles away, if I tap into that, I can transmit 50 miles, from this little repeater. It's a great radio, but it's got a lot of cons. You need an amateur license plus the study materials and a few weeks of study. You can't just jump on there and start transmitting. The stock transmitter the stock antenna, it's poor. They recommend getting a genuine Nagoya, and I'll put a link there if you want to get one to look out to how to identify your counterfeits. Even with a genuine Nagoya antenna, you're still only transmitting up to about 10 miles. And there is a need for I wouldn't say you have to have a programming cable, but if you don't, it's a lot more of a pain. So it's a $9 cable, and there's a learning curve. So all things said, I don't think that a Baofeng is a great first choice for a lot of people, especially if you're on a budget.
Well, and you've blown your $30, you know, right there. Yeah. I had a hell of a time. I was never able to get, and now it's probably just user error, I had a real hard time with the programming cable with my Baofengs.
Did you?
But
Yeah.
I did buy everything 6 or 7 years ago, so maybe I need to go back and try again. But yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I just wanted to holler out. I forgot. I put this entire PDF document in the notes for anybody who wants it as well.
Yeah, that's right.
It'll be there. So anyway, go ahead, brother.
So yeah, you guys don't have to signal stick cheaper in lifetime warranty. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I'm going to get to something like that, Nate. So the one that I started with, and I love, and I want everybody who's even slightly interested in prepping to get on AliExpress. There's a coupon that when you first get in, and you can search around, you can find these things for $5. At least it was a few months ago. It might be up to $8 or $10 now, but it's pennies. It's the price of a Happy Meal. And what it does, this is basically a $5 ham radio. They were designed for the European TV tuner market, but people figured out pretty quickly that you can listen to all kinds of frequencies, like all over FM radio, CB, FRS, GMRS, MERS, weather, military, airplanes, and oh, by the way, European television. So they're just an excellent, thank you, Nate. RTL SDR is like the thing to get. So
you can listen. I remember. Okay, do you remember Stephen Harris that used to be on? Yeah, he used to talk about airline or airplane air traffic radios.
Okay,
is this the type of thing that you can listen?
I imagine so. It's not something that interests me, so I haven't looked into it, but I think it can.
Cool. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I just have. I can't. To myself, I'm thinking, what would I do with listening to an airplane? I just couldn't. So I didn't pursue that.
No worries.
But anyway, it's a jack of all trades. You do not need a license for it. That's a great way to learn just the ham radio basics, and it's got decent range. You put up a wire antenna in your tree, and you can get some pretty good range. Reception range. Now the downside of it is it's no transmitter. It's only receive. But as we were talking earlier, you're going to do more talking or listening than you will do talking. So, at first, that's great. And because it's a jack of all trades, it is a master of none. It's like me, and so it's not the best quality, but it is still just a bang up value, just incredible value. No, but even though there's no license required, you still got to learn some topics and learn about a little bit. It's not perfectly user friendly, but it's like 5 out of 10 difficulty. You plug away at it all weekend, watch the tutorials, you'll get it. And if you don't, you can hit me up. I may know the answer. If I don't, I could point you to the right direction. So just a good little choice.
And it's I think you may have said this or I might have missed it, but it's required to plug into a computer.
Oh yes, yeah. I meant to say that it's USB. It
okay.
must plugged into a computer, and we were talking about a solution for that in the chat. Yeah, okay, you got to have a laptop, but in my EMP go bag, I have an old Windows computer, just like ancient, like 15 years old, and I plugged in the thing and set up all the software, programmed in a bunch of frequencies, and all. By the way, I put a bunch of ebooks, survival ebooks on there. Wrap the whole thing in foil, and I've got ways to charge it if the lights go out. So,
but no data connections needed, right?
No data, no internet. Yeah, but get it set up before the internet goes down.
Yes,
because you're going to be like, oh, this is not working right, or what's those frequencies? So do it while you have internet.
Cool.
Yep. So it's just an excellent. Anybody who's even so lightly interested in anything prepping, it's been $5, $8, $10, get you an RTL SDR. There's many tutorials. There is a manual, and in the video there, here's a hack that upgrades the stock antenna. Is where I showed where I took the stock factory antenna, I took my Swiss Army knife out of my pocket, clipped off the wires, and twisted on an external wire that's hanging up in my tree. This is real redneck. There's just very low tech, and it gives it a major range. Just that 15 foot antenna up into the tree. Just a great little addition. So that link there is the video. It goes to the video where I recorded that. And on those two links below, I demonstrate by listening to my ham repeater that's 3 miles away. And then I also pulled up some CB radio. Hogs is asking, can you use this on a Chromebook? Let me write a note to myself to look at that. I don't know. I'm inclined to say yes.
I bet you could too.
So I'll do that. Yeah, I'm inclined to say yes. There's so many. I think you can do it on Android, and I know you can do it on Linux. And so if you can do it on Linux, you can probably do it on a Chromebook. But
I just did it looks like they recently released an app that'll run through Chrome on a Chromebook laptop or Chrome web browser. So it looks like it looks like you're good to go on that.
So now, for just let's see. So anyway, some more notes on this. Receivability can be like how well you can receive your stations can depend on a good quality receiver. Like spending $1,000, $2,000 on, but a good antenna can make up for a low quality receiver. So for the beginner, just take a long wire. You don't even have to measure the length. Just this one in the tree. I put a fishing weight on a fishing line. I took a slingshot, popped it up into the tree with the fishing line, and then I pulled that down, and then I tied a wire, pulled that up there, and it's like a 28 gauge, very thin magnetic wire. Just doesn't need anything at all. I took that and then I ran it into the center conductor line on the antenna that comes out of the unit. Mm-hmm. You can see in that video where I cut off where I told you I cut off the antenna.
Sure.
And so I just put it into the center line and then have a ground on the outer shielding. So I believe I put all that in the video, but that's how you would do it. Of course, this is very susceptible to lightning. If there's any possibility, and we're in the lightning capital of the world, so I am always thinking about lightning. Don't use if there's lightning within 10 miles. So just don't want to have that finding its way down here.
I mean, that kind of, you get struck by lightning. Doesn't that break the number one rule of survival?
Yeah.
You survive, right? So
Absolutely.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah. So if you have a little more pennies, like, I want to upgrade, there is a upgraded version for about 40 US or maybe it's gone up to 45. But anyway, the biggest advantage of this guy is you get twice the bandwidth. Like if the original cheap Chinese dinky little one gives you about half of all the possible frequencies, this gives you like almost every frequency. It's incredible. From 500 kilohertz all the way to 1.2 gigahertz. It's just massive. Yes. And so if you got a little more, if you just want something, definitely get the first one. But if you've got the $40 to $42, get the RTL-SDR.com. It's called Moon Bear. But look out for counterfeits, because you get on like eBay or whatever and you type in the RTL SDR blog V3 is what you have to type. You get on there and there's plenty of counterfeits. So the way to avoid that is you go directly to the store and go through their links that they offer that. Now, it does not come with an antenna like the cheap one does. It comes with a cheap little wired antenna. So in order to get an antenna, it's there's a combo RTL SDR plus antenna kit.
Okay.
Last I checked was around $40. So it's a great value. It's just a great value. It's got, let's see, I've got right here. It came with a little tripod. It came with a long extension cord. It came with a window suction unit.
Yes, that works.
Yep, and it came with 2 different rabbit ears.
Okay.
And then I bought a USB extension cord so I can get a little more, room to the USB outlet. And then I also bought an adapter for standard cable TV coax, so I could take cable TV coax line and run that, through a wall or something out to where I want to run my antenna. So it just gives me more flexibility. And this was like $8 or $5 on Amazon.
I like that MacGyver mindset. Make it
Got
work.
it. Yep. Yeah, make it be flexible. That's the way to do it. So if you got the pennies, go for the upgraded version because you're just there's almost nothing you can't hear at that point.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a great way to go.
I think I'm going to look at that one. I like that. At $40 is not the end of the world either if you want to go a little bigger. So
right. The quality's a little better, although it's not that much better, but it is a little better. Oh, and the other thing, it has a few extra tiny little features that I didn't think they were essential, but they're just nice to have. Like it's called a bias T, and you can power antennas through it. It does some extra things, but for the most part, the big advantage of that one is the extended range.
Right on.
Yep. So then we come to the next option, which is CB radio. And for the dirt cheap communications, CB is actually, in my head, superior to a Baofeng for some situations. Not every situation, but quite a few situations. It's not as sexy as ham, like if ham is sexy. But it is still useful for listening and talking up to 15 miles.
Okay.
And the good thing I can do with my CB is I can listen to what the truckers are saying.
Right.
When I was listening, I was like, okay, what are these truckers talking about? And they were just talking about UFOs or something. So it wasn't anything relevant, but it could be. It's great for intelligence.
When I was heading to LFTN this year, we got storm stayed for a little while. Crazy. It was 4/20, April 20th. We got stopped on the side of the road in a blizzard.
Oh.
And who did I ask for information but the truckers?
Yeah.
The truckers pull in, they pull off to the side of the road. You want to know, hey, what are the roads like? Where's the wind blowing from? Where are the accidents? That sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So Nate says most hams have a CB. They just won't admit it. That's great.
And I actually got one off of Free Cycle. I just saw somebody I got this whole ham radio. I said, I'll take it. I plugged it in my cigarette lighter and it lit right up. So I was like, yeah. And now CB is a lot. Some people don't know this, but you do not need a license for CB. You can jump right on and start talking. And it's relatively easy to learn. There's just not a lot of things you have to know to make good contact with CB. So it's just got a lot of things going for it. And I've seen handheld units. They have different ways of running their channels. You've got the original 23 channels. And then over time, they bumped up to 40 channels. So the original radios can't talk on the higher channels. Okay.
Sure.
But there's still plenty of talking going on the lower channel. And then they split those out into upper and lower sideband. So you got the channel, which is AM, and then you can split those out. You have two different channels there. So you really get up to 80 channels on CB. But your 23 are just pretty darn good. I've seen them on eBay for about 15 units. They're handheld. Make sure it has an antenna. Some of them don't have it. And for those handheld jobs, your range of transmit is about 2 miles.
Okay.
So the car mount, like I've got, it's got some with more power, some with more channels, bigger antenna. I've seen them for as low as $20 on eBay. Range can be 15 miles if you use single sideband and you use the maximum power and antenna and your terrain is good. Blah, 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 blah. But, your mileage may vary. So it could be...
Literally.
Yeah.
Yep.
But expect somewhere between 3, 5, 10, 15 miles of transmit range. So it's pretty decent for... it's comparable with the Baofeng.
It's not bad.
The Baofeng by itself, Baofeng connected into a repeater can do better.
Sure.
In fact, some people have taken Baofengs and talked to satellites. So there's that. But if you're just apples to apples, how far can these two transmit? They're about roughly the same. If you use it at home, you just get a 12-volt adapter or pick up your RTL SDR, plug it into your laptop, and listen to CB radio. Which I put that video in the earlier in the slide of me listening to CB radio. So cool.
We CB was big where I grew up, at least.
Yeah.
So not. I mean, I grew up in the '80s, so I don't remember a ton of it. But my dad and my grandfather, they were. My grandfather was on it all the time, and his nickname was Cookie Monster. And my wife's father was on it. He was a butcher, and his nickname or handle was Meat Cutter.
That's
So
cool.
she always, Becky, when I first told her I was getting into ham, she rolled her eyes because she's like, it's not going to be like my father's stupid CB radio, was it?
Oh yeah. I grew up in the '80s too, and my mom was worried that my initials are CB, and she thought, oh, people are going to razz on me. But by the time I was old enough for anybody to know, they were all CDs were gone and passing fad, you know. But they're still around. I mean, I lit up my, and I heard people talking. Oh wow, there's still people using it. So it's definitely usable. Now get on and learn a little bit about etiquette. Get on and learn about how to use the channels. Where is the emergency line? Because one of the channels, and I got it written down, but I think it's either 19 or 9 is the emergency channel. And so you can get on and say, you know, emergency. So.
And the cool thing when you said that CB has roughly the same range as a Baofeng, the cool thing is there's no certification or license. So you're not breaking the law. I mean, now in an emergency, of course, you can use whatever you have. But yeah, if we want to stay above law, or you know, with you know, our nose clean and out of the eyesight, you know, absolutely.
Right. Especially while you want to practice before you have to need it.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with that. Cool. All right, so that's CB. So the next thing that the dirt cheap dude can pick up is an FRS walkie-talkie. I've got one right here. It is, you almost certainly have used one, and they're the extremely common. The chances are very good that one of your neighbors has one. I've seen them as low as $8. And don't be afraid to buy a used one on eBay. I've done that. They are very robust. Let's see. Nate says etiquette is big on ham radio. CB has the possibility of.
Yeah, he's saying etiquette's big on ham radio, totally. But he said CB also has the possibility of skip. If 10 meter is open, 11 will be open.
Yeah, so you can skip
to get it out quite a ways.
I don't know how far that is, but I'm sure it's probably like 50 miles. I'm guessing.
I think I know Nate's told me before. I want to guess it's around 100 miles, but I might be wrong. Nate, fill me in, brother. He will. And Know Your Joe says 9 is the emergency channel.
Okay, yeah, and I've got it written down because that's one thing I did for my.
I was way off. 1,200 miles.
Oh, 1,200 miles. Now, this is a little pro tip: is print down and write down on paper frequently used frequencies and emergency channels and instructions on paper that you keep with your CB and your ham radio. You know, I keep mine in the car, it wrapped in EMP foil. So I got the instructions and everything written on that so that I don't have to go, oh crap, how do I use that? I just pull out my notes. Boom, there you go.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, so FRS. FRS is I think family radio, but it is there's no license required. Your range is about a half a mile. You can listen to people around you on the channels that we're talking about, or I've got 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 FRS radios that if we had a crisis, I would pool the neighborhood together and say everybody gets a radio and we're going to talk to each other. And with your RTL SDR, you can listen to it. So you can listen to FRS. Yeah, see that thing is a huge value. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Just get you one of those things. Just no questions.
So these would be a good. What's wrong with me tonight? These would be good for around your property if you're kind of hanging out. Yep.
Yeah. So I talked to the other RV without trying to shout at them, and we have my mother-in-law, 100 feet away, and so we're going 200, 300 feet distance, and we're talking to each other. So this is not in the next state. This is in the next block.
Sure.
You're just short range. But the fact that they're so cheap, you need no license, and almost everyone has one is definitely a big win. So definitely get one.
They'd work for like convoying if you were bugging out together, multiple vehicles, that sort of thing.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. They're great for that. If you have an RV, you're trying to back up. It's one person.
Yes. Trying to save your marriage. Yep, absolutely.
Right. That was why I bought the first one, is because I knew we had to back up an RV. So let's do that on the walkie.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right. So the one I just mentioning was the Baofeng. It's slightly upgraded from the $8 or $10 job you see on eBay. Is this Baofeng does make FRS radios. You can see it's got a very uncomplicated interface, but you can program it with the same Baofeng cable. So it's got the same, yeah. So for like $13.50 a piece, and they've got what I love about them is they've got a base, so they set in the base to charge all times. I bought a second battery and I just charge the battery, and then I swap out the battery. But they're very common. The batteries are common. It's a great value. I've had none of them fail. Just a really good little guy. So if you're just going to spend a little bit more, get the Baofeng.
And do you know the power on the Baofengs of these ones?
They can be up to 2 watts on certain channels. We run ours on channel 15, which has a 2-watt allowance. The other channels have a 500 milliwatt allowance. And by the way, this is important. It's not a big deal, but some radios like this one, I think this one. Anyway, some radios can also transmit on what's called GMRS, and that does require a license.
Right.
And so, are they going to prosecute? Probably not, but they could. You could get in trouble if you're transmitting on GMRS without a license. It's
and again, in a worst case scenario,
worst case scenario, use it. And it's not a terribly expensive license. In the U.S., it's $85 for your whole family for 10 years. So you could do worse. But when this gives me the same, GMRS does have a few more, like a lot better power, and you can do repeat. Well, anyway, GMRS does have some more flexibility. This gives me what I need without a license. So I'm
going to look into these. I like this idea.
Yeah. All right. So now we're getting a little more esoteric. Okay. Suppose you want a ham radio transmitter. Thank you, Nate. FRMRS is 50 watts ham. First, FRS is 2 watt. GMRS is 50 watt. Ham is 1500 watt. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Suppose you want a transmitter. You want a ham, and this does receive. AliExpress, they've got them for $4. You can transmit and receive on these guys for hundreds of miles. They fit into an Altoids can, and they are battery powered, so you can run them on 12-volt car battery or a 9-volt square battery.
And does this, I can't tell. So does it have a speaker, or does this plug into a computer? Or
all right. So this is Morse code, first of all. It's only Morse code. And on the right-hand side, you can see the little black thing with the silver.
Yep.
That is the speaker headphones. And then below it, underneath your logo there, is where you plug in the Morse code key.
Okay.
And then on the left side, that black thing is the power socket. And that white thing in the upper left corner is your antenna.
That thing is tiny.
Yeah, I wish I had dropped mine, but it's like that big.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's okay. Have you picked things up listening on it at all?
I've done it like once or twice because it's really crude. It's a great first project, but you're not going to stay there if you get any slightly interested. But for $4, because one thing, it's got a lot of cons to it. You only get a few frequencies, and you have to buy this crystal set. You take out the crystal and you plug in another crystal. There's no knob to change the frequency. And
okay.
Yeah. It's hard to make many contacts that way, and you've got to solder it. Now, I enjoyed that. It's a one afternoon project to put the pieces in there, solder it. And so it's kind of neat. You got to build an antenna. You got to learn Morse code. You got to have a license. You got to buy a different frequency crystal than it comes with. You got to tweak it if you want more crystals or frequencies. So it's not the best thing.
Okay.
You know, but it's $4 if you want. There's your pros and your cons with it.
Seems like the cheaper things get, the more learning and
Yeah.
the more hands-on you have to be with it. Hey,
It can be. Well, the RTL SDR is plug it in and start working. But yeah. Anyway, I did buy one for true emergency, even though I'm not licensed. I bought extra crystals. You are allowed to use, these things in a true emergency if the grid is down or if the government's too preoccupied. But use one in emergency while the government is up, and you may get out of the emergency, but you're going to have a $10,000 fine. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. Better to pay the 10 grand and be alive. Anyway, I put some links to some Morse code cheat sheets where you can paste them on your wall. And one of them is a tree. So you start with the top and use tree, and you look at those links and you'll see.
That makes sense. Moonbear wants to know if you do any installations.
Yeah, just pay for my airline ticket.
There you go. Or go down. Yeah, that's cool.
All right, so a little bit more advanced is it's a step up, and I don't have one of these, but it's a Rockmite or Super Rockmite. They're also on eBay or Alley. Can do a little bit better quality, a little bit more distance. Also uses crystals. Also must solder. Also must learn Morse. Also must have a license.
So it's just a more souped up version of.
Yeah, a little bit better. Yeah. Then you got this sits beside my bed. Now, do not say you're a prepper if you don't want to sleep through a tornado. In Florida, we get quite a few tornadoes, and being in an RV, we really want to know when there's a tornado warning. We'll jump in the car rather than sit in the RV during a tornado. So I've got that right next to my bed. In fact, this is the very unit, and it goes off in the middle of the night. I got that for $15.
So those are the ones that they're tuned in and they'll automatically turn on if there's an emergency. Is that the right?
Yeah. And I was able to program that to only my zip code and only the alerts I care about, because we get so many severe thunderstorms that it's not worth waking me up for, at 2 a.m. for a severe thunderstorm. But a tornado, I definitely want to know.
I recently found out that these also work in Canada. I thought they were only an American thing.
Wow.
So I never had one on my list because of course, you know what happens when you assume, right?
Yeah.
I always assumed it was only a U.S. Technology, but no, it's is this your missus, Sherry?
There she is.
Nice. Good to have you. I always love that when others come in to support. She said she has a love-hate relationship with your weather radio.
Yeah.
Probably scared
hey,
you.
So, it's probably gone off, and I've never heard it, but she's probably heard it. Anyway, just definitely pick you up one. Oh, and by the way, you can listen to weather radio with the RTL SDR. So it's yet another thing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you can listen to your weather radio. I just put a few notes like look for the FIPS code, look for a feature called SAME, look for a feature called EOM. So I just put a few tips and tricks with the weather radio.
Is the FIPS, is that your local your local area code?
Correct. Yeah, that's it's similar to a zip code.
Okay.
Yep.
That's cool. Yeah.
All right, so this one's a little more esoteric, but this is pretty cool. Suppose you got a group of 5 friends, and you're wanting to go on the back country. There's not going to be no cell service. With a mesh-tastic, you can go 3 to 5. The distance is like 5 kilometers or something like that, 3 to 5 miles away, and one of these devices pairs to your phone by Bluetooth.
Okay.
And then that rubber ducky antenna there in the picture, it transmits over that to the other devices in the group, and everybody can text without any cell phone service. So
that's what I was going to say. So no need of data with this at all.
No need for data. No need for any service at all. You can put your phone in airplane mode.
Could you? I think I may have talked to somebody else about this before, but could you hook one of those up to say a battery pack and then kind of put it up in a tree so it could kind of act as, or do you know? Or are they only?
That's a good question.
I got to look into that. Anyway, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Nate says it's almost Wi-Fi for hams.
It's almost Wi-Fi. That's right. And
cool.
you do need a phone, but your group can talk with each other, and they're $18 a piece, so they're pretty darn cool.
I like that.
Yeah, and it uses what's called technology called LoRa, LORA. That's a no license required.
Okay.
All right, so there's more about that. They got them. Here's what to search for: AliExpress or eBay. Look for LilyGo TTGO.
So I got to ask. I guess this is confession time. I've never ordered anything on AliExpress.
Okay.
Is it as simple as Amazon and that sort of thing, or is it a little
pretty straightforward? Yeah.
Yeah, you just sign up for an account and order stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and you don't have quite as good of a guarantee, but I have gotten refunds for things from them.
So it's better than. Have you ever used Wish before?
Never used Wish.
Okay, so it has to be better than Wish.
It's got to be better than Wish. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was Wish so bad. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So anyway, if you do happen to go looking for one, the LilyGo TTGO is the least expensive option, and it seems like it's adequate to do the job. From what I saw, I don't have one, but I was looking at while I was putting this together. I thought. So, all right. So, what about some free options? We got your scanner radio app that tells you, comes up on your phone when you have when a like a police radio or a fire rescue radio is if there's something big going on in like Chicago or something, you'll get an alert that says something's going on. You may want to listen into the scanner radio. So it's a pretty cool little app. But the downside is there's only a few cities, and you do need a data connection. So,
okay. But again, a lot of times, if you, one thing I've noticed in my town, when the power goes out, I have some of the best Wi-Fi or the best signal coverage because most people aren't hooked up, but our local telecom place has backup power. So if I have my house running, my Wi-Fi, so something to think about for some people.
It's just it's belt and suspenders. Have you two is one and one is none.
Mm-hmm.
This next one is Red Cross puts out an emergency phone app. Get to the camera. So it is for iPhone and Android. It does alert for tornadoes or whatever. You can customize the alerts. You can turn off nuisance alerts, but the downside is that it's very quiet. I wrote to the company that produced it. There's a developer link somewhere, and I said, hey, can you guys make this alert louder, because it's like beep, beep, beep. I'm not going to hear that at 2 a.m. if there's a tornado. But it's better than nothing. Just get that and put it on your phone. I also ask that if you do get it, to contact the company and ask them to make that louder, and then if enough of us do request it, then maybe they'll make that a feature in the future. So
I know our emergency alert system here is unbelievably loud, just scary loud. And that only downside with the emergency alert is there's no way to opt out of any of them with ours. So unless, do you know something I don't know?
Yes, you might. I can, we have Amber Alerts, and there is a setting to, I'm looking at my iPhone, emergency alerts, Amber Alerts, and you could turn off.
Here, I'm going to bring you up big here for a second.
Yeah.
There you go.
So you can turn off Amber Alerts.
Oh,
and,
see.
I feel sorry for the kids, but I'm not about and about, and I certainly don't need to hear that at 2 a.m.
Well, that is my deal as well. And again, Becky and I have talked about this a lot. I'm not against Amber Alerts. We live in a very small town. The problem with the Amber Alerts being treated like an emergency alert is that people become desensitized to the things that they need to pay attention to. Yeah. So that's my little hobby horse, or my soapbox. Here, I'll bring you back up. Okay.
So in your iPhone, you can go into.
I was going to get you in closer, but there we go.
Now, I don't know about Android, but I'm pretty sure I've seen it on Android, my wife's Android. But on iPhone, you go into notifications.
Okay. See, we learned something new as we go. That's cool.
Go to the bottom. There's your settings for those noisy.
Okay. Alerts. I think you might have. I'm going to see if it's available. I don't know. Yeah. I'll see if I can, but I'm going to try it here.
Yeah, hunt around. I'm about 98% sure I saw it on my wife's Android, those settings as well.
No, that's cool. Made my day. Yeah, and it's like, again, it's not that we don't feel bad for those kids, but it's not anything that, I just, for me, I think an emergency alert, it was as bad as when this was horrible. Our province used the emergency alert system to notify us of new COVID restrictions being imposed. That was, I was so mad. But anyway, I think the emergency alert should be for emergencies. Yes. But anyway.
Yeah. Now here's where I was mentioning that those iOS or Android emergency alerts. So anyway, same thing we're talking about. Anyway, get you a cheap AM/FM radio. Sometimes you get them for free. They're definitely battery powered. It's better than nothing. You're going to get biased information, but sometimes bias is better than nothing. So have you at least one little battery radio. All right, this is kind of fun. If you're thinking you might want to learn a little bit more about ham, you don't have to have a license. You can get to the online ham radio. Do a web search for online ham radio. You can listen to ham radio. You're going to be hearing information that's not coming from their biased government mouthpieces, but it's going to be outside of your area. But it requires internet. It requires your data. So no license required. It's just something you can do right now. All right, this is something that I'd like more people to do. Is don't throw away your old cell phone. Any old working phone. Now, is the emergency number 911 in Canada?
Yes.
Yeah. So any old working phone can dial 911. I've done it. Even if it's got no service. So the way you do that is you pick up your regular phone, you call the non-emergency police number. And you ask them, hey, how do I do a 911 test?
Oh, okay.
And my local police just said, just call it. And when they pick up, say, I'm just doing a test.
Fair enough.
So that's what I did. Yeah. So don't throw away that old cell phone. Throw it in the glove compartment. Put in charging cable, USB charger, all that, so that and maybe even spare battery bank, so that you can light it up and make it go if you do have an emergency. And then just put a reminder, keep it charged.
After my last trip last fall, when I lost, they shut off my Canadian data in the U.S. after being there for about 10 days. Driving on the interstate, had no GPS. Oh, trust me, it was a hole. Anyway, so ever since, I also bought a paper atlas that goes down in the bottom.
Yeah.
But I threw a second phone in there in case my phone ever dies, and I loaded it up with, maps.me or whatever, so that I would have, so it has GPS. You don't need data to bring in the GPS if you preload the maps. So it's sitting in there, shut off, good to go, and just check the battery every so often. So
just check and charge the battery. And I'm going to hold, my mouth is really running dry. I'm going to...
Yeah, you go ahead. Sure. I'm going to, so I'm going to, a couple things I'm going to look at while you're, first off, I got to look and see if anybody else out there has picked up or has a good recommendation for a weather radio that works in Canada. From what I understood, the NOAA ones do. But that's my next purchase, I think, is something I got to have. I got to have one of those. There's just been so much shit going on up here in the last little while, and I want to highlight Backwoods Butchers. First off, I got to say I appreciate having Kyle in here because I'm always looking at learning new things. But he said, conversation like this reminds me why I toss dead animals around for a living right over my head. But you know what? You're in here, you're having fun with the community, and some of this will rub off by osmosis, man. Every time I listen, I learn something new.
Well, I'm sorry, Kyle, if I am talking over your head, man. Just please ask questions. I'm trying to keep it low because I'm not an expert.
You're doing good. He's just a young feller that has never used a payphone before, so he gets a little, it's okay. We appreciate it. So.
Oh man, all right. Okay, so when you're thinking about communications, don't overlook just a bulletin board. Put notes on a message board down in your central location at the end of the street or something. Low tech, reliable, leave messages for others. Yada yada yada. So I got to comment on this because I love this. When I was in high school and I worked at a library, I kept a list of all the community bulletin boards within kind of like a 10-minute drive because it was a great way to disseminate information before everybody had the internet. But of course, I'm a big junkie of like post-apocalyptic, and in the TV show Jeremiah, quite a few years ago, they had a local bulletin board
that as people would come through, they would leave pieces of information that they heard from different communities. Now, I mean, that's a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But this is so practical, and it would
Yeah.
work really well.
You really would. Just keep that in your back pocket for a rainy day. All right, so SMS, standard text message. Of course, everyone's got it. Everyone knows it. What you might not know is that SMS tends to be more reliable than a standard phone call. In fact, during Katrina, texts were usually the only thing that got through. So it's a lot more reliable to send a text. You're sending just a small packet of information. So if I had a group and we were getting this going, I would set up a text tree, not group text. Now, what's the text tree? Text tree is where one person texts 2 people or 3 people. Those 3 people each text 3 people. Those 3 people text 3 people. And the reason you do that instead of a group text is because group texts depend on data, which may be clogged or may not be available.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So set up a text tree instead of, and yeah, you can still do group text, of course, but set up a text tree so that everybody's instructed to, hey, Junior, you call Bob, and Alice, and Bob and Alice are going to call Steve. So
one thing I always liked about texts as well is, like with a phone call, you call, and if you don't connect, you hang up. But with a text, it sits there and kind of keeps retrying for a while. It
very
kind of
reliable
system. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, in fact, Steve Harris was saying he used to put his phone on the end of a stick, hold it way up in the air, and then he had voice Bluetooth headset that he would do voice commands into the thing and say, hey, text Bobby and tell him I'm on my way, and so he would do it that way.
I like that. It works. Yeah. Whatever you got to do, right?
That's right. All right, so phone call trees, the same idea. Do the same organization. If instead of text, maybe you do it as calls. Hey, Bobby calls Alice and Steve.
It's funny. I don't remember who I was speaking with the other day, but that's the second time I talked about it. So growing up, Mom and Dad always had a piece of paper next to their phone in the hallway. It was a prayer chain from the church. And so it was that same thing. The first person would call, I think it was 6 people, and then each of them would call whatever, and that we forget about that stuff.
Yeah.
That's really handy.
All right, so here's the fun one. This is the highly illegal one. I call it the neighborhood telegraph.
For informational purposes.
Entertainment
purposes. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we're entering into the anarchist cookbook zone. Now, this would be like only if the grid is down, the police are not responding, blah, blah, blah. You can pirate phone lines or cable coax or power lines, anything with copper in it that runs through your neighborhood. If you look up, next time you go outside, look at those lines. Those are all potential communication lines that you can use to talk to other people.
Okay.
They go to every house. Everybody's got, power lines or cable or something. Even if you've got fiber, you've still got power lines. So, potentially, of course, we cannot test this, but I'm just throwing this idea out there as a maybe something you could do. You could use it to not only tap out Morse code, but you can also set it up so that it is an alarm, and you can wake up your neighbors at 2 a.m. for some kind of emergency. Everybody rallies around and comes to your help. So there's just a couple different ways to do that. So the idea is you get some car batteries, maybe even some solar panels to charge the car batteries. Relays, most cars have relays under the hood. So you take the relays, you take the car horn, you take the buzzers, you take the lights and the switches. You go down to the central box of your telephone line. You disconnect your wires that are going away from the box down to the central office, and you connect all those wires down into a battery. Then you install an indoor buzzer and lights that are loud enough, or the buzzer that's loud enough to wake a person. And then on the outdoors, you put a car horn, and you turn it on at night when there's an emergency. So in the daytime, you're using that buzzer to talk to each other.
Sure.
But at night, you could use that buzzer to slam the emergency button. It wakes up everybody, and then you go out and you honk your car horn so that people run outside and they hear the car horn down the block. Oh, it's Bob. Let's go down to Bob's house, see what he needs. So as a group of neighbors, as you get together and you have any sort of a crisis, you have that toolkit to wake people up, to alert people, to talk, to communicate in amongst that neighborhood in your few blocks area.
I actually think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah. So I put earlier a link to a Morse code cheat sheet.
Yep.
So print out at least one of those. You can also always, trace it by pencil later or rewrite it by pencil later. If you need more of them and you don't have a copier, but just get at least one of them and print it out. I actually, this is the fun thing. I actually made a working circuit diagram. I have a link there to where you can test it yourself. You can play with it. So
that's actually really cool. I mean, this is in the weeds as far as but it do you ever read 1 Second After?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, of course you did. Yeah, you were in our conversation. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. It kind of reminds me a bit of their makeshift telephone lines that they put back together using the old switchboard. It's really just a physical. You're making and breaking physical connections is what you're doing.
Yes. The original.
There would be a ton of stuff around to scavenge to work from with that.
Yeah, and I don't care if EMP melts every device.
Right.
Where there's a will, there's a way. As long as there's wires.
That's what I'm thinking. Nothing. I was just thinking that anything you salvage in here is pretty much
pretty reliable.
You know what I mean? Like it's going to work.
Yeah. I mean, there's a real good chance. I'm of the opinion that EMP probably would not destroy absolutely everything, but I work into my plan the thought that what if it does, and then I work backwards from there. Okay, we have absolutely zero electronics, and then I just work backwards from that point. So if you
have a plan, if you're halfway to the worst case scenario, you're halfway better than you would have been if it were the worst case scenario.
Absolutely. Yep. So that's the way it is. So click that link and check out the circuit and play with it. All right, so here is the big summary. So if I only had $30 in my pocket and I wanted 80%, I would get a RTL SDR, and I put miscellaneous things because sometimes there's wires or connectors that come up. I would get a handheld CB radio. I would get a single FRS radio, and I would do all the other free things that I listed. So,
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, 80% of your needs. Yeah.
I mean, and again, 80%, I'm a big fan of going with the odds. So if you can, if you can do the 80% for $30, I'm guessing the other 20% is going to be quite a bit more money. So, if you can do 80% with $30 and you haven't put yourself in a financial hole, then that's the thing you should do.
You're going to get started. You're going to have, a way to listen in around the around this region. Really, you're going to have a way to listen to a lot going on. You're going to be able to talk to emergency help within 10 miles. You're probably going to find neighbors who have the same FRS walkie, and you're going to have all those apps and your neighborhood illegal transmitter. So,
I like that.
Yeah,
that's really cool, man. That was
survival MacGyver.
Yeah. That's a really, I mean, I've had Ryan Buford from the Next Generation podcast on.
Okay.
We did an episode a couple years ago called Post-Apocalyptic Scavenging or Salvaging. Cool. I can't remember what we called it. And the idea was just like, okay, what basic materials could we scavenge from anywhere, and what could you use them for?
Yes, you can. Yeah. I've got a buddy that we talk sometimes, and we worked out a way to do solar power without panels.
Really?
You take an old weed eater and you turn it into a steam engine, which is surprisingly easy.
Okay.
It's not that, because a weed eater is a 2-cycle engine.
Right.
You push steam through the
intake or through the carburetor?
The spark plug out.
Oh, spark. Yep. Okay.
No, through the spark plug. Yeah.
Yep.
You push steam, and then it has a bump valve. The bump valve pushes and lets in steam. So as the piston rises, it bumps the thing and pushes some steam, and it goes, and it bumps the thing and pushes steam, and it bumps the thing and pushes, and it cycles that way, and it creates an engine that spins that you can hook to an alternator to create electricity. And the steam can be created with a reflective surface and run some pipes around it.
Yeah. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. So where there's a will, there's a way.
Have you ever read World Made by Hand?
No, I never heard of it.
It's really good. James, I can't remember the name of the dude right now, the author, but it's a post peak oil book. Really cool. It takes place in upstate New York, I believe.
Okay.
And the main character is a handyman or kind of a construction guy, but he spends a lot of time salvaging materials, repurposing materials, and what you described there is that type of thing. I love that because given enough time and access to the materials you can scavenge and people who have the right type of mental framework, there's nothing you can't do, right?
Yeah, I found it. It's by James Howard Kunstler.
There it is. Yes. Cool. Yeah, he's an interesting dude, but boy, he is a talented writer for sure. I'm going to read this. Nate says, Web SDR in Utah covers the entire Midwest to Europe, and it's free to use. Kiwi SDR, you can use the map and hone in on your area or another part of the world.
See that? I would like that to compare. So I'd have my SDR set up now. Can I pick up these stations that this professional is able to pick up with his SDR? You know, somebody
Absolutely.
who knows more than I do.
Know Your Joe says, any suggestions for a GMRS radio?
GMRS
ham radio. And need a steam engine.
Need a steam engine. Yeah, no, I can't think of a GMRS radio that I would recommend because I don't have one. I don't have, but a ham. Again, I want to circle back to the RTL SDR. Start with that because you're going to learn the basics. You're going to have to learn a few concepts to know how to use it. It's not plug it and it starts working. You've got to do some reading and watch tutorials. You're going to spend, a few hours to a weekend, and then you're going to learn. You're going to know then from some real basics.
That's cool,
then yes, go get then I would say after that, if you're wanting to transmit, you've got the Pixie, but it's Morse code. I would just go get a Baofeng. Just get a Baofeng.
And if you're going to play, if you want to learn to transmit, go get your. I have just my basic ham license. I got it probably 9 years ago. I need to upgrade. I need to get my basic with honor so I can play on the HF bands. But the basic was simple. I had no problem getting it. And then the cool thing is then you get to experiment without the chance of getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And then you're completely trained up even when you really need to rely on it, right?
Right. Now, if you don't have a license, like I don't have a license,
right.
I looked up my local ham repeater, and I found out when they run their weekly nets. So I tuned in one night and I listened to them talking on the net. Yeah. Sure. So you can, with my Baofeng, I had both the Baofeng and the RTL together, trying to see how I could get the right reception with, so I was comparing them. But you can do that without a license. You can just plug in and start listening to your local net and learning the way that people communicate on those things and learning how to do it so that when you get to the point where you actually need it, then it's not entirely unfamiliar. So
that's my next plan. Nate and I are going to do that this winter. If I don't get my HF license yet, I'm going to get everything hooked up so I can start learning the process. And then it's just the time,
It's just the time. Yeah, I hear you.
So how did this start? I don't know if I guess it was just kind of how did this kind of become a little bit of a passion for you, doing it cheap?
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said, I say to myself, I can't justify buying a ham radio. Let's find out what people do. And I started looking around and reading, and you can find solutions just by reading. Just by getting on, reading forums, watching YouTube. So spend enough time in it, you'll see and say, "Oh, I could do that," and "Oh, I could do that." And at first I thought, "Well, I'm going to need this fancy antenna." And I was talking to a guy about my setup, and he said, "No, you don't. You just need a wire. You just run a wire. You don't need for transmitting. You need the right antenna. For receiving, a single long." Random length of wire will do, any length of wire. So
that's cool, man.
Yeah. So that was just how it goes, And I said, so I got on Alley, and this is back, 8-10 years ago when they were $3-4. and got me one and plugged it in and started playing with it. So.
Well, that's cool. So how can people support you, Christopher, if they want to know more about you or the projects you're up to, or even just if you're cool with it, if people reach out just to pick your brain a little bit sometime?
Yeah, they can. Again, I'm not an expert, but I can give you some ideas or get you pointed the right direction. But anyway, they can hit me up at securecoop.com. There is a contact form. They can reach out to me, and they can follow along what I'm doing. I've got a mailing list that I'm going to be sending out emails about the status of the project and how things are coming. Pretty soon, going to be putting up a video of a prototype and showing off the Secure Coop, which is by the way, is a coop door opener with phone notifications. So I told you I work for a Fortune 50 financial company, and I work with their servers, and we've got servers that are running $1 billion of transaction through them. And I learned about how to make sure that servers are reliable and that they don't go down. So I'm applying those same concepts down to the chicken coop. So if any issue comes up and I don't notify you about it, and you lose your flock because I failed to notify you, I've got a guarantee that I will replace your entire flock up to 20 birds. So
nice.
That's my guarantee.
And it's not quite available yet, right?
Not quite available yet. I like I said, I'm not as good of a programmer as I thought I was, but I'm getting there. Okay. And it's getting there, and I'm going to have it, reviewed and make sure I got all my dot my I's and cross my T's. But it's going to have a phone app for iOS and Android, and it'll send you a notification when the coop is open and closed. After I've got this basic coop system worked out, I intend to take that same core and build on it. So the next projects will be secure farm. So like electric gates and electric fence. You instead of having to walk your electric fence with a tester, you can see, hey, that the fence is out. Or
maybe water levels in
water levels. Yeah,
wow.
And incubators, temperature, heat, because the same basic core is easy to extend. So once I get the core right, that's been the hard part, is just getting the core right. Once the core software is working like it's supposed to, then it should, in theory, be pretty easy to add new, all kinds of stuff. So the secure farm is I'm going to try and cover, your backyard security from two-legged and four-legged predators, basically, and water levels and feed levels. So
driveway sensors.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't wait. Yeah, that'll be cool. When you're ready to launch the Secure Coop, come back on and we'll plug the heck out of it for you.
Thank you. I really need that. Yeah, thank you.
No, I appreciate you coming on, man. Somebody just said that'd be good for dog kennels. Sure, it would.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it's locked up, because I don't know how many times the dog's good, you know what I mean? So yeah. Right on. Go ahead.
Who was asking about the Chromebook? I'm going to try and get back to them on that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'll if you can find an answer to it, I'm going to close up here in just a sec, but we can send it out through the I can send it out through the Telegram group after too, if you want.
All right, sounds good.
But if you want to hang in the background for a second, I'll close up the show and I'll be right back with you.
Oh.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed that. This was a lot of fun. I mean, you saw his presentation. It was really neat. I was really glad he was willing to come on and share it with us, because, like I said, I love coming at different topics from both ends of the spectrum. You can go $4,000, $5,000 and be tricked out to have, the best ham radio setup. Nate, I'm looking at you, anywhere. Or you can start for free or $30 and get your feet wet and go from there, because we don't all come at it with the same budget, and it's hard to justify comms for some things if you're not, if it's just not your thing, or you're not ready to make that investment. Sometimes you play and you learn and then you go from there. But I was super glad that Christopher came on with short notice. It was awesome. Like I said, 10 days from we talked to when he got on the show. It doesn't always happen that way. So thank him. But also, guys, just give him some support. If you want to pick his brain or reach out to him or get on the notification list for when his Secure Coop comes out, show him the love. And with that, guys, I always appreciate you. It was a great Sunday evening. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.